on the sign regulations, and Councilmember Saunders sent me some input that he had. They also asked for more information and some changes to the mixed use zone. They adopted, this wasn't a specific planning commission item, but just for your information, since it ties into to building, they passed an ordinance establishing fines for failed building inspections and also for occupancy violations, so that we don't have issues with homes, apartments, townhomes being occupied before the final inspection's been done. Basically, you get 2 chances to pass an inspection, and starting with the 3rd time they have to come out to do a specific inspection, you have to pay a fine. Every time they come out, and you have to pay that prior to being scheduled. Oh, and just so the Planning Commission is aware, the city has adopted Juneteenth, the most recently adopted federal holiday. The city has opted to observe that. That is Monday. So beginning with this year, Alika, can you go let Melinda in? She just sent me an email that the doors are locked. Sorry, I just saw the email pop up in the corner of my tablet. So starting with this year, which is Monday, June 19th will be observed as a federal holiday by West Haven. That's all.
All right, thank you. Let's wait 1 second. All right, item number 5, discussion and action on a final site plan for approval for a gas station convenience store for KG 2515. Someone here for that?
Can you say that again?
Number 5, the final site plan for the gas station. Applicant KG 2515 LLC.
Yes, I believe they are here online.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's Joe, right?
Oh, he's clapping. You
Um,
can unmute yourself.
I'm here.
The thing that was outstanding before the city could grant approval of the final site plan was the city council needed to vacate the easement that was related to the placement of the building on this site. That has to be done by ordinance, which is why the easement vacation went to the council, but not the site plan. The city council did pass that, so that easement has been vacated. So they are before the commission to receive approval of their final site plan. They have complied with everything that was discussed and put into place at the planning, at the preliminary level, at the approval of the preliminary. See? I know. I'll probably end up getting it all right the day before I retire. So they've complied with everything. Nothing has changed from the time they received approval of the preliminary site plan. And so it would be staff's recommendation that they receive approval of the final site plan.
Okay, any comment, any questions, anyone? I'll entertain a motion.
So we can grant this, not recommend it, correct? We don't need to recommend to city council
No, city council doesn't see site plans
Okay.
unless it's over 40,000. So this actually is an administrative approval. So you're not recommending, you're approving.
I'll make a motion that we grant final site plan approval for the, should I say it the right one? For the final site plan for the gas station convenience store located at 3474 West, 4000 South.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to grant final site plan approval for gas station convenience store located at 3474 West, 4000 South for applicant KG 2515 LLC. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? Oh, sorry, Andrew, I almost missed you. Good job. Okay,
Trying to say it a little bit early so you don't get the lag.
there you go. Thank you. Item number 6, discussion action on final site plan for gas station convenience store at 3580 Midland South, KG 2519 LLC. Any changes on this one?
There's not. So there's two different components to this particular site. That's why it's listed. That's why there's two different action items on the agenda. They are going to be located on the northeast corner of Hinckley and Midland. They'll be directly north of the Wingspan Apartments at that light. They have access points that both Hinckley and Midland are UDOT roads. And so they have been working with UDOT to ensure that the access points are there. They have, Joe, do you guys have final approval from UDOT yet, or is there just a couple things outstanding?
I don't know the answer to that, Sherry. If Will was on, which I don't see him logged in, he would probably know. But if I know that he was reaching out to UDOT a couple weeks ago about something, but I'm not sure what that was.
So the accesses are already there. This site actually already had two approved UDOT access points. They had the curb cuts there already before Come and Go wanted to develop this as a site. And so it's not even a matter of getting UDOT approval for the accesses because UDOT already approved those access points. There's just a couple, and Will that Joe referenced, Will was actually in my office last week and we were talking about this. But it's nothing that, it's a couple minor technical details that they're clearing up with UDOT. The access points and thus the layout of the site isn't going to change. But those are both UDOT controlled roads and they already have prior approved access points. So as far as the site goes, there's not any outstanding issues. They've given us all the necessary letters from the service providers. There was a large easement through the property that was not a city easement. It was owned by Taylor West Weber. Like it says in the staff report, Taylor West Weber has vacated that easement. And I believe you guys were given a copy of the document vacating the easement that's been recorded. Yep. So on the site itself, there's no issues that would prevent it from receiving approval of their final site plan. The other item that they're here on is right now there's a few different parcels that are there. And what they're wanting to do is consolidate and replat the property so that it's just one lot. And so there's two separate items on there. The commission is the approval authority for the site plan. And then on the replat, it's approval of the preliminary and recommendation of a final. Because right now, changes that are upcoming and that we've discussed notwithstanding, right now the city council is still the approval authority for final plats. So there's a few different things going on here, but hopefully the way I've laid it out makes sense and we can answer any questions that the commission might have.
Okay. Any questions?
I do have a question about the traffic flow with delivery trucks. Is that a one-way type deal to get in and out, or how is that going to work, Mr. Wright?
So that's how it usually works. What we do is we'll model it based on the various size trucks that would come in and out of the site, whether it's fuel delivery or food delivery. And we usually model it as just a loop. So it would just be one way, usually looping around the canopy.
Okay, which direction would the loop start, I guess is my actual question. Does it?
And I'm opening up the plan right now to try to get you a better answer.
Okay. I'm patient, sort of.
Thank you.
While he's looking that up, Alec had just reminded me that we actually did get their UDOT approval the other day. Will, their engineer, referenced, sent me an email that had all of the letters and things attached to it just to get me everything in one thing. And the UDOT access approval is in there. So they do have that approval.
Okay, thank you.
And are you talking to Jeff? Are you talking about like if trucks are trying to turn left onto Hinckley?
Yes, that and
The
coming
in
off.
and out again. That's that is something that UDOT would not have signed off on. Let me pull up their comment letter.
Well, it's also a traffic flow issue behind their building because it's not very wide back there for delivery trucks. So I'm a little concerned
So-
about which way they flow.
Well, when people submit site plans before it comes to the plan, they have to provide our city engineer with turning templates and traffic flows to show site circulation. And if there are any adjustments that have to be made, like increasing widths or anything like that, those are done as part of the engineering review. We have not, when Ed told me that these guys were okay to come for final, he doesn't have any engineering or site circulation concerns with the building location and the widths behind it.
Okay.
So Sherry, if I could jump in again, just looking at the width of both entrances, the truck traffic would probably come off of Midland Drive
Yeah.
because that's the wider drive. And they will, so there is a striped delivery zone behind the building that you can see in the packet there in the plans.
Yeah, it's number 10 on sheet 21 of 25. That's what you're talking about?
Also,
Yeah, and then the fuel tanks are also sort of off that back service drive. So I don't, like, the packet doesn't include turning templates, but we do model that for both come and go, and as Sherry explained, we would do that for the city at like the pre-application or pre-development meeting. We'd make sure to know on our site that the trucks can move. And just looking at the layout here, I'm pretty sure that they would enter and exit on Midland. I don't-
sorry, Joe. Both accesses, both Hinckley and Midland, are right in, right out. There's no left-hand turns out of either side.
Oh, okay, then maybe they do,
Yeah.
maybe they are able to make that swing back over to Hinckley
Yeah.
then.
So,
Okay. Yeah,
yeah. No,
I
and
worry
it's-
about the big turning issues being
Yeah,
able to
and
go
it's
left.
and like I said, they have to do the turning templates and the circulation stuff as part of their review. City engineering staff won't let it go back to me and in front of you guys unless they are satisfied with the site circulation. And also, it has been proposed and approved by UDOT as right in, right out only off of both Hinckley and Midland. So there won't be any, especially with the proximity to the light right there
Right.
and the propensity for those things to stack going the opposite directions.
Right.
There's no left-hand turns out of either side of this site.
Okay. Yeah, that was my big concern.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
and it wasn't on there, so I didn't know.
Yeah.
It's a good reason to ask a question.
No, and it was easy enough to pull up their UDOT information.
Sure. No, great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wright.
Sure thing.
Okay, any other questions before we move on from 6? the
One
final
last
site
question.
plan?
Is there any relevance to the Maverick purchase of Come and Go, or will we just be changing it all from that? Any badging or anything for it?
We don't know at this point. The only bearing that it would have on the development of the site is if Maverick chooses to, because the details have not been finalized, the sale is not finalized. I just had a conversation about this on Thursday with Come and Go's regional real estate guy. That it was one of those, Maverick put together an offer really quickly, And so the offer's been accepted, but the details of it aren't going to be known by anybody. I mean, most people in either company don't know the final details. The only thing that would change really is the name. It's not going to affect the layout. If Maverick decides to get rid of the branding, then that would change to a Maverick store, but it doesn't change anything about the site.
Yeah, everything would stay the same. And right now, as Sherry said, the details are still being worked out. And we were told back when it was announced that it's going to be business as usual for at least the next 6 months. So there's nothing that's going to happen anytime soon. And
So
and I would echo what Sherry just said, that in this store or in Utah in general, possibly some stores could get rebranded, but that was it. That's all we've been told as well.
yeah.
Okay. Do I have a motion for item 6?
So we're just approving, right? All right, I'll make a motion, move to approve final site plan for a gas station convenience store located at 3580 South Midland Drive.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to give final site plan approval for gas station convenience store located at 3580 South Midland Drive for applicant KG 2519 LLC. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Item 7, same thing, but with the preliminary and final plat amendment further in the packet there for the same store.
Do you have any questions about the plat? It's pretty straightforward. They're
It's just a drainage right there on that parcel A.
yeah.
Yeah. Any questions? I'll entertain a motion then, if you're ready. So approve the preliminary, and then recommend the final to the city council, if you want to do a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve preliminary and recommend approval for final plat amendment for subdivision, nope, I jumped ahead. Nope, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, approving the preliminary and recommending final.
For the subdivision located at approximately 3580 South Midland Drive.
Second?
Okay, I have a motion and a second to grant preliminary approval and recommend final plat approval to the city council for the subdivision located at approximately 3580 South Midland Drive for applicant KG 2519 LLC. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, it's on to city council. And item number 8, discussion action on a preliminary site plan to consider approval for a mechanical contractor business. Applicant Bob Pittapaw and Gary Hunt. Someone here for that? I hope I said the name right.
Yeah, this is Gary Hunt.
Okay. So tell us what you want to do.
Pardon?
Tell us what you have planned to do.
Well, we have a commercial building for EME Mechanical on the site at 4608 South, 3500 West. And building is, let's see, approximately, what was it, 9,000 square feet. I have to look at the plan, but the parking on the south side of the building is on the north side of the property. We have access right now, a current road on the south side of the property that accesses 3500 West, and we're adding a drive on 3500 West. We've got the associated parking and stuff, so I don't know if you have any questions specifically about it.
Sherry, do we have this plat in our?
It's down lower.
It's apparently some of the
I'm like,
documents
where's
got
this
put in the
order?
wrong order. It's on page
seen it.
40.
And so it looks like
There we are.
that staff has determined there are not enough parking stalls with their plan. Is that right? Am I reading that correctly?
I'm gonna turn this over to Alika.
You can share the mic with her there.
Go ahead.
So when they originally came in, we hadn't passed the new parking ordinance. And so that's kind of what I tried to lay out on my staff report. With our current ordinance, they would need to have, in total 34 parking spaces. But with our old one, they would only need to have 8. There's that difference there. So
Wow.
So
Yeah.
which one are they required to abide by, the new one or the old one?
The
I would-
the new one. It's a little bit of a weird situation because they had met with staff and they were actively working on it.
yeah, a
So,
gray area there.
but they had not made the formal submittal till after the new one was adopted.
Okay. What kind of business is it? All I have is EME Mechanical.
They have about 6 employees that are would be in the building at the time. And rest of the people are out on the field all the time. They're actually installers and workers, so.
So it's primarily storage of,
Storage, it's a warehouse.
Okay.
With partial offices and then partial storage.
okay,
And so what we have done is we provided, I think, 27,
26.
26 parking stalls
okay.
for that, which is more than adequate for what their use is. Because it's just warehouse, they're not gonna have people there full-time, just there for.
You don't have
Workers.
customers showing up to
No.
look at anything?
No, so it's not, it's not that, it's just their own business, so. Doesn't
So-
have any, there's no retail, no customers coming in.
So my understanding is you've applied to UDOT to get a road through there? Is that correct?
No.
No?
There's no UDOT involvement.
I need to clarify, and we'll work this out before final. There are some parts of 3500 that are UDOT and county roads and some parts aren't. So that's something that I did not do a good job about making clear with Alika. So I don't believe that this far down it's UDOT. I need to look at the extent of that though.
I have some concerns that this small, very narrow road, that your drivers, your employees are going to be using this road and it's going to be in front of this assisted living center.
We're actually behind it. They're in front of us and they have access off a different road than ours.
So they're,
We have access off
the
the west
east?
side of our property and Peachtree is on the east side of the
Right.
property.
Yeah.
They're
They
to the,
access off the east side of their properties.
right, but
So
if
there's no conflict. of
There's no traffic conflict.
There's no traffic
Okay.
from Peachtree.
it looked like, when I looked at it, it looked like it had a driveway that went out onto that small alleyway.
That alleyway is part of their property
Right.
and the owner's property. And
But it, on the south portion of this little map I'm looking at, it has an exit on that south road, is that correct?
no, there's no access along the south. There's buildings on the south side of the property line. This little alleyway, the road on the south side accesses off 3500 West.
so what is to the south of you?
There are some commercial buildings. I think they're office, aren't they?
Mike
Okay.
Schultz.
Yeah.
Right. I still see a driveway.
I think maybe a little bit of, because I had this problem at first when I was looking at the site plan. The way it's on there, you have to actually flip it. The front of the building is not facing 3500.
Right, faces south, correct?
Yeah.
Faces south, yes.
It's the side of it. So when I first looked at it, I thought the road was
So does
someplace different from where it is.
Well, he's talking about the plan here, this right here. So you have the access on 3500 here, but what is this?
Okay. Well, this whole property here is, well, up here, the blue line, is my client's. This is just a paved road on the south side of his property. His property line is down here. This is all commercial
Right.
buildings down here.
So this
No
is the road
access.
that goes in front of Peachtree, this little road right here.
This probably shows a better picture of it.
Yeah, maybe aerial.
Yeah, well, that's what I looked at that, so where does this go? See, it would have to
see.
go out here onto.
Right.
So wouldn't this little road right here that he's talking about come out onto this little road right here?
That's the way it's drawn, so I'm,
Cause
Quite
here's
curious.
3500,
Here's 3,500.
so you have
That's
access
down
here,
Yeah.
and then it looks like there's coming out onto this alleyway here.
Yeah, it's, our traffic is gonna all enter on this side.
This is the south part, right here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's facing down, this is south. This is gonna be-
Yeah.
That's gonna be, that access is gonna be on this alleyway then.
This is just kind of like an
Is the access required for fire, that south access?
I'm not sure.
Cause otherwise, if you're not gonna use it, it's a waste of space. But if the fire department wants a turnaround, so they can go in and,
It may be to loop it for the fire department. I would assume that's probably why they have it there.
okay.
I don't think this is not a street, that's just an alleyway. This is not
Yeah,
listed.
it's on the private property for
Right.
both. It's driveway.
like a.
Right, okay.
And your client owns this part of it, even though it's already paved,
Yeah, he owns right down to here,
right?
the side of that, so.
Okay. All right, now we're all on the same page.
well, we all know what we're talking about.
Yes.
Whether we're on the same page or not, I
Right,
don't
we know
know.
what we're talking about, how it's situated,
It's always better.
yeah. Let's see here, you got more questions, Jeff?
Well, I have concerns that even though it's open to that narrow alleyway, I do have concerns that vehicles are gonna travel in and out in front of the assisted living facility. That bothers me.
But you're looking at 6 vehicles a day, right? 6 workers?
6 workers, yeah.
So, even if they came and went a few times a day, that's not significant.
You know, it's unfortunate they have to have 26 parking spaces.
Yeah.
But
I think it just depends on what direction they're gonna go. If they need to go down into Roy, then maybe they'll wanna go hit Midland there, but if they're going anywhere north, they're gonna wanna go the other way, or east, or west. Cause then they can go over to 4,000 and have much better access without having to deal with
Yeah.
Well, and
Midland.
depending on the time of day, nobody wants to get on to Midland, do they?
You're right.
no, they'll never let you out.
So staff just wants a landscaping plan.
And we got them one.
Are we okay to move
Yeah.
forward without that, or do we wanna,
Do they have the will
So-
serve letter from Hooper Water?
do you have the Hooper Water will serve letter yet?
Did we get that or?
But as far as the landscaping goes, they did end up sending a plan.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, I don't know if you got the updated staff report on that, but yeah, they comply.
Oh, That's why the staff report was changed.
Yeah,
Okay.
it came in later.
We all get that?
Yes, it was emailed separately from this.
And they just need that before final, correct?
Yeah,
Well, but we have
which
it.
they did.
But do they have the will serve letter? That's the
Yeah,
question.
the letter.
Yeah, the other thing is just the will serve letter from Hooper Water District.
Did you pay the water fees?
So you have water.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, as long as they turn it in before final, they'll be fine.
Yeah. You can't build without it. I mean, you gotta have water, so.
Yeah, we'll get those. So you need the will serve letter.
Yep, just make sure you have that before final.
And I paid for it dearly.
I'll have to check with my engineer, see if he's talked to them, so.
Yeah, somehow the landscaping made it onto the,
Get an updated.
well, this is the updated packet that she sent too. You sent an updated packet too with the link. Yeah, so this is the updated packet. And then there was an updated staff report too.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful in the future if we knew what the update was, so we didn't have to try and search through the entire packet.
Well, because I can only see one, so
Yeah, I have the update
I got the
here.
one that the packet was too large.
Yeah.
They both were.
On Monday.
They
on
both
June
were. Yeah,
12th. Was afternoon on Monday.
because here's the landscape plan right here on the end of this packet.
From who?
From Robin.
Yeah, it came from Robin.
612?
You gotta unblock
get it.
her.
No, I didn't get it. That's what I'm saying. I'm on 612. See right here, I don't have it on 612. So for whatever reason, it didn't come to me. Okay, I'm not cracking up, people, just saying. Yeah, you went to junk that time. How come? Get everything else from you. Sorry. Okay, here we go then.
Move it to inbox, and then that will tell your computer to keep it in inbox. All right, so any other questions? Sorry about the confusion.
Fine. My guy forgot to include it in his site package stuff, so.
Okay,
we're getting him to
any
follow up.
concerns, questions, comments? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion. I think you just need that will serve letter from Hooper District then.
Yeah. Okay, I'll make a motion that we, let's see, well, it says consider approval, but we could grant approval for the preliminary site plan for a mechanical contractor business located at 4608 South, 3500 West. And just a reminder to have the will serve letter from Hooper Water prior to final.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to grant preliminary site plan approval for mechanical contractor business located at 4608 South, 3500 West for applicant Bob Pettipaw and Gary Hunt, with the condition that they have, or with the requirement that they have the will serve letter for final from Hooper Water District. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Hey,
2 opposed? So you're moving on. Okay, great. You need 4 votes, so you've got it.
Now you just work with engineering to get the site civils mostly approved, and once the engineer gives me the thumbs up, we'll have you back for final.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
Okay, number 9, discussion action on a conditional use permit for a commercial daycare located at 3500 West, 3300 South. Someone here for that?
Hi, my name is Juan Bugarin. I mean, never been to one of these meetings, so I'm not sure. But
Can you say your name really slowly again so she can get it?
Juan Bugarin.
Did you get that? Yep. All right, good.
And we just wanna,
And what's your name?
My name's Jaden Luke.
Okay, thank you. She's just got to put it in the minutes, so. or the- So you want to do a daycare? Is that the,
yeah, daycare slash preschool, so you want to get the permit for that?
right there on that corner with that commercial, those commercial buildings right there.
3500 West and 33 South.
The only question I had about it was, do daycare kids, are they dropped off roughly the same time, or are they dropped off at different times during the day, and when are they picked up?
They can be dropped off at different times. It's just whenever the parents bring them in, and they're like set hours that they'll set with us.
Okay. So I just wonder, you know, there's always, when a school starts and gets done, there's always chaos in the parking lot. And so I just wondered if that is something that happens at a daycare or not.
I'd say with daycare, it's less chaotic because not everyone's coming in at the same time. And
Okay.
like, you can pick them up whenever, drop them off whenever, like between our set hours.
Okay. How many employees approximately do you have?
Right now, we don't have any because we're getting our permits.
Right. But what do you anticipate?
You said 3, right?
Hmm?
You need a 3?
Well, with the amount of it depends on how many kids we can get in there, but we're thinking like from 5 to 7,
Okay.
Staff of 5 to 7?
roughly.
Okay, I just want clarification whether that was kids or staff.
Oh yeah, staff.
Are
sorry.
you,
you.
are you renting just one section of the building or multiple sections? 2 sections? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So have you looked at the parking there now? Is there adequate parking for your staff? And, I mean, I know how much,
Yeah.
I know, I can see how much parking's there, but I'm just making sure you realize there's enough parking there.
Plenty.
Yes.
Have you looked at it during the day and that's good?
Mhm.
Okay. Sometimes to me, it just seems pretty full there, so I just wondered.
I have a question on the map. Is this map updated? Like, does the parking lot extend or it stops right there?
It stops there because I think there's gonna be
Yeah.
a building here and here
Oh,
and
I
here.
see.
There's, I will say, and this doesn't have a bearing on their application because the site plan was done a long time ago. The parking over there is going to be really interesting when all the buildings are built out.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, it's not anything that can weigh heavily on this because the parking is the parking that was previously approved.
Right.
But that project is actually one of the reasons we started looking at additional parking for flex space.
Yeah, that's why I just want to make sure you had looked at it.
Could be a little tight.
So I just have a question about, it says that children won't be outside. There's not gonna be any outdoor space for this daycare?
So with daycare, you have to have an outside. With preschool, we don't. But we were talking to the owner, and if you look on the right on this side of the building, so a space over from us, there's enough room to make an outdoor area.
So the north side of the building. Okay.
Northwest side of the building.
So you just fence it and put grass and place it or something
Yeah,
in there?
because that's
Yeah.
that's kind of a big deal.
And we already
Right.
talked to the owner, and that's something that we can do.
Yeah. Can always walk to the park, I guess. That's
Across
quite
the
a
street.
walk.
Across that street?
3,500.
Well, right there's a stop sign. so
You
that's
hoping to
good.
pick up some customers
Dinner?
from texters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got it figured out.
I mean, they're right by a elementary school. This would be, I think, a good place to
Yeah,
have
it's
a
a
good
daycare, or
location.
preschool. Like, it's an excellent place to have one.
Yeah. Probably be well used.
Yep, they could drop off all their kids.
So is your total space 1,250 or that's just half of it?
Say that again, sorry.
1,250 square feet, is that for, you said you had 2 units, unless I misunderstood.
1250 is just one, right?
Yeah, I think it's just one.
Yeah, so double that, because we're getting 2 spaces.
So how many kids do you anticipate? I mean, when you max out?
We just had a meeting with with a lady, and she said that we can have around 70 kids.
70?
In 1,200 square feet?
2,500.
2,500.
2,500.
That's still my upstairs. I wouldn't want 70 kids in my upstairs.
Well, but it's regulated by the state, right? The number of
Yeah,
kids.
that's the regulated.
Okay.
Yes.
70?
With the size of our area in the building. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I work with 3 months daycare, and there's no way they would get 70 kids in there.
Well, you could,
No,
but
no.
it'd be really packed.
I'm surprised if somebody told you you could get 70 kids in 2,500 square feet. That's 70, that's a lot
Oh,
of
I know.
bodies.
Yeah, no, I agree with you in that one.
They do have to
That's-
go, the approval on the numbers and all of that,
It's state.
and how much square footage, they have to go through the state of Utah for that.
Right.
So the state will set the cap on it.
Yeah, so that's, we don't really need to worry about that.
No, not really. It's just shocking.
Don't worry about it if it's really
Now we
70.
look at those higher numbers, I'm kind of concerned like Darren with the drop off and pickup. I know that was an issue with the one that was over on that private road. Remember the one, Angie's Daycare? Is it Angie's? There was a lot of issues, but people were parking on the road and walking across. But I just wonder, is there going to be like
That
some
one's
dedicated?
more of a preschool, isn't it?
Yeah, that was, they were all coming at the same time, but I'm just wondering, like, would there be some dedicated parking maybe? So like, just for drop off and pickup, I'm just trying to figure out how people,
Yeah, are you
Would
gonna get some
circulate through there.
dedicated spaces like right in front of yours where,
Well, we can reserve something like that if that's something that we need to do, yes.
I think it'd be safer.
Yeah.
Are you trying to do a daycare and a preschool? So that's what's here, right? So they are going to have a lot of people at the same time if they're doing a preschool with the daycare.
Oh,
yeah, I just wondered if it might impact the other businesses if there's kind of a lineup and then they're, dropping kids off.
so how much are in how many kids do you anticipate in daycare and how many kids in preschool?
So we haven't fully decided if we want to do preschool or daycare. We're leaning more towards the daycare.
Okay,
It was mainly decided like if we could get that outdoor area or not. And since we have it, we're leaning more towards daycare only.
Because we need to have that area, outside area to be able to do the preschool. So right now
For
we're
daycare.
starting for daycare, yeah.
There's over 70 parking spaces in there, 70-something for the businesses. So in that second building that you guys are in, how many open units are there? How many are housed in that second building? You're taking 2 of them. How many does that leave left over?
Do you know?
How many, say that again, I'm sorry?
So in that second building, you're taking 2 of the units in there. How many
Yes.
units are in that whole building?
There's one more,
There's one more? Okay.
yeah.
is there 4 or 5 sections in those buildings?
It's 5.
That would be my guess, but I wasn't sure.
Looks like
If it's like the other building, it's 5.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Trying to count roof lines.
Yeah, so
It
I
looks
mean-
like 4.
No, there's 5 gables.
Is there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You're a better counter than I am.
Well,
Math wasn't my best subject.
You know what? I am actually going to ask that the commission table this. Because we need, because of the location, typically with preschools, we require a schedule of when the classes are going to be and how many kids are going to be in each class. So I would recommend that the commission table this until we can get more information about the actual operation of the business,
Yeah, if
including class
If
size.
we're only gonna do daycare or preschool, you need to decide and let us know. You'll have to come back and let us know
Well, a lot
exactly
of
what you
places
wanna
do both.
Yeah,
It's not impossible to do both,
No,
but
it's not.
we need
No.
more information.
Yeah.
we need, yeah.
I
So
think
if
we
you're
need
gonna
a
do
lot more
classes, we need to
information.
know when they're gonna come and go, and so we can figure out, and maybe talk to the owner of this property and see if you can figure out a way to make it safe as possible for kids to be dropped off.
And if any coordination has been done with the state, and if the state has, because the state limits the maximum allowed capacity based on local ordinances. So if there's been any coordination with the state, and if they've made a determination on the maximum capacity, we need to see that, because
Well, I guess 70 isn't unreasonable if they're not all there at the same time.
Right.
So that's the conversation I guess I need to understand better. If you have 25 kids there for 2 hours in the morning and a new 25 kids there, you know. So if you have several sessions, 70's not absurd, but 70 kids in there all at one time,
So we actually met with the state. We met with a lady from the state, and that's what she said was 70
for preschool or daycare?
for daycare.
Oh, I just can't even imagine that.
That's what our square footage allows.
I know how many square footage they make you have for foster care, and it's,
Those are probably two different agencies.
they're both state though.
Yeah,
I just,
You're looking at
I would need
times
more
also,
information.
kind of look at the school start times, so that you're not, so those are gonna be high traffic areas also. That's just a suggestion, but that would be because the elementary's right behind you, just right to the north of you, so look at that time. So that you're not like, I would either go a little bit before or after, depending on, but if it's daycare, it's just when people work. People aren't all coming at the same time. So that's why,
No, but you'll have the majority of them coming, probably between 7 and 8-ish for daycare.
don't get us wrong, it's not that we disapprove of the thing, it's just that there's a lot of unanswered questions. And so I think it's better that maybe you get a little bit more
We just
information.
want it to be safe.
Yes.
And
Because
I
right now
think
it would
you
be
do
more
too.
like a daycare because we still have to do the outside play area. I mean, that's required to have a preschool.
Yeah.
So, like, even for daycare, would it be okay, you think, or?
Well, daycare would be easier on the traffic, definitely. And if you could get,
Designated parking.
designated stalls right in front of your thing where the kids, so they're gonna tend to run that direction instead of across the parking lot or something, that would be better. So it just depends. But if you wanna do preschool, then we need to know when you're gonna have the classes, and you kinda need to know, I mean, you have to have some kind of projection as the kids, how many kids you're gonna have, that kind of thing, I think, so. Think it through a little, you can come back to our next meeting, we'll rehash it again, but, and try to work with staff too, they'll help you. They'll answer questions and you'll say, this is what I found out, is that enough? And they can tell you whether or not it is or not, so.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yeah,
Okay,
thank
I'll
you.
entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we table agenda number 9, request for a conditional use permit for a commercial daycare located at 3500 West, 3300 South.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to table item 9, the conditional use permit for a daycare located at 3500 West, 3300 South. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, it's tabled. All right, item tabled from our last meeting, item 10, discussion action on a public hearing. Consider rezone for property located at 2828 West, 1850 South, and 2844 West, 1850 South, from A1 to R2. And I see Rich is out in the audience, so he can come talk to us, Richard Williams and Matthew Smith. I know Richard, so we're in the same neighborhood, so I know him. I don't know Matthew, but I saw him last time, but.
Thank you. As a way of introduction, again, I live at 2828 West, 1850 South. My wife is also with me. Matt and Megan, they live next door. We've lived there for a considerable amount of time. It's a cul-de-sac, and I think you guys have seen the layout of the property and can see how it's uniquely situated. What's changed in the recent years is that we've got a canal that we've buried, and the property on the other side that was unused is being requested by this group to be able to do a rezone. As everybody's aware, one of the big issues facing Utah, and especially northern Utah, is the availability of affordable housing. Now, what we're asking here is not for like affordable housing for like duplexes and things like that. What we're looking for is to be able to build on that other portion of the property that's a very large piece of property, both of us to be able to build an additional home. Now, that additional home would be looked at for something sizable that our kids would want to live there. I've got 4 kids. Matt, and I'm not trying to speak for Matt, he's got 2 kids. They're here also. That's the idea, is that we could have something that's a larger, very nice. I mean, we're looking at something that would be a considerable investment, that if we put that size of house on it, under kind of what we had talked about with community development, an accessory unit dwelling or accessory dwelling unit, whichever way the group wants to call it, both of us are concerned that that would overprice, given the home prices, when you have 2 homes that are built on it and said it's just a mother-in-law's home over there. It would blow that out. And so when we originally came to Sherry and this group, that's the idea, is to build something that's beautiful, that's something that's very nice, something that's not going to decrease anybody's property. In fact, it would be the fact that for years we had that canal going through there and it was a weed city. This is only going to improve values for everybody. And so that's what we're asking for this group to consider. The other thing that's really unique about this piece of property, and I think you guys can see it, it's pretty self-evident, is that it abuts next to 1800 South, whereas ours is into the cul-de-sac. And so there is an actual place on the back side that is the front side of what that property would be. Does that make sense? Am I trying to be clear? Versus a flag lot or someone else that would have difficulty with building something behind. This is ideally situated both with utilities, electrical. In fact, Ray Holmes, next to Matt, he is presently building for their daughter the same type of situation, the same type of home, with the idea, because of the bearing of the property, that that's going to be perfectly situated for their youngest daughter. And that's what's going on right now, is a building. So again, in speaking to neighbors, in speaking to the general community, this would be something that would be very, very nice as far as a home, but utilizing the land to the best maximum use of the land, while, again, being able to not have an open piece of property that becomes weed infested and that sort of thing. So I'm not trying to overtake this group. If Matt has something to say in addition.
No, I kind of spoke last time. That's exactly what we want as well, is a space, a lot for our kids possibly to build on. It's already naturally divided. That canal's always going to be there. We've just had a shared expense with the canal company on piping that in. And so now that's actually a fairly large piece of property on the backside, which, like Rich said, has utilities. It has access for the fire department and,
And that's, if this group is asking, well, why didn't you come sooner? Or what's been the change in circumstance? That's the major change in circumstance, is that we did improve the property. And so now it's not, like I said, with everything that was going through there, that's all underneath. And so it makes it ideally situated, especially with it immediately adjacent to that 1800 South, to be perfectly situated to have some very nice homes put there. But if it was to remain onto one property, you can imagine with home prices, you could put a 3,000 square foot home there with a walkout basement, do all these things, and you're still looking at a $600,000 house. Then if you look at the property that Matt and I are situated, I'm not trying to overstate the value of our property, but all of a sudden it becomes a 1.5, and then you're trying to figure out comparables within the neighborhood of that, having that much improvement to the land. And that's why it's only appropriate to be able to have just 2 separate properties and to do that rezone.
If you were to do an ADU, you couldn't access your utilities across that canal. You'd have to go to 1800, wouldn't you?
You would have to do 1800.
Okay.
And that's why it's, again, makes sense in breaking off the property and having its own utility number, having its own And the utilities are right through there, just like what Ray's doing. The water, everything would have its own separate new connection. And so it's just ideally situated for this sort of development.
From my looking at it, it appears that there's quite a significant drop off from 1800 onto the lower portion of the property. What is your plan to mitigate that?
So even in talking to, for example, footings and foundations people, that is a perfect situation for a daylight basement where they can build, and again, appropriately, it's very gradual. This is not like a huge piece of property that just drops. It's gradual. They build it into it, and then all of a sudden you've got all that open area that's daylight down below. And so with it, it's perfect to maximize a daylight basement and an upper level on that.
What would be your access point to 1800 then?
Just right along the side. I mean, you could put, in both situations, the garage right on the side and the daylight basement down below. Does that make sense?
It makes sense I understand what you're saying, but when I've taken a hard look at it, it looks like it's quite a steep drop off.
It's very gradual. Having been there for many years, it's a gradual piece. And in fact, people that have gone down there, it's got a gradual slope that goes down to the property. It's a massive piece of property there to be able to do that. So there's room, in talking to Kurt Nalder, who's also looked at the setbacks and the foundation, it can easily be done.
Okay. And in your case, you're going to tear down
The shed.
the shed?
Yeah, the shed would go, the shop would stay, and then the house would go further toward the east side, with the garage probably further east on that side of it.
Yeah.
Going on to 1800. And like Rich said, it'd be ideal because you got the gentle slope coming down. So if you build a rambler, which is ideally probably what we would build, it would be a full daylight basement in the bottom side of it with a rambler up top and then your driveway. You'd probably have to bring in some fill for the drive and maybe some slight retention on the side there, but it wouldn't be drastic. So I would just, tear the shed down and the fruit trees right there, and that would go toward that side of it. Or I could, I've got additional parking coming off of Cameron Drive there as well.
Right where it comes in.
So there'd be 2 parking for me, because the shop would stay with that parcel.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
What's the general consensus among your neighbors? Just to be aware, the last time we were here, 2 of your neighbors came out and said they were not in support of this.
Well, and that's, the general consensus is everybody's on board. And that's general, meaning I think
How
there's
many
two
statements of-
objectors with, that have said, look, that provides a windfall, or they're afraid that it could decrease the value of the property. As stated, this would not decrease the value of the property. In fact, it would be.
Do you have any evidence or any statements from your neighbors that are in support of this?
Well, the fact that notice has been provided to everybody and there hasn't been any other objection other than the 2 that's noted, with going out and talking to them, whether it's been Ray or the rest of the people, the Packers across the street. I mean, we went out to individually and talked to people about this and said, this is what we're planning, and said, we want to improve the property. We want this to be something that's very nice as far as the last thing we would ever do is put something that's an eyesore behind either of our properties. And everybody's been, let's do it. We're okay. Ray Holmes is building the property right there, same type of situation. And again, he was on board in speaking to him.
Again, we don't have any of that on the record. I mean, we have,
Correct. The absence of not having anything, I mean, going and talking to them, the statement was, hey, look, there's time open for comment. And they said, hey, look, we're completely okay with it. Go in and ask for it. And that's why the only 2 objections are just the Kellys and, of course, the Elwoods. And so, You know, and some of that concern is, like I said, I think that once they see that it's a very nice piece of property, I mean, if you look at how many people have been told about this and the fact that we've been good neighbors, we've been very, very thoughtful in making sure that people understand, hey, this is going to be something that the kids would be able to have, a nice piece of property back there. That I think speaks volumes to the fact that nobody came in, there isn't anybody here that's objecting as far as, or even previous during the time that it was open for statement. That's usually, and I've been to these meetings, that's when people stand up, line up, and make it known.
My objection is that the area is zoned A1. And you open that up, and I'm not saying it wouldn't be done beautifully. All over West Haven, there are multiple properties that have a perfect condition to do just what you're trying to do. But it's kind of been a big deal in the city to have A1. And I haven't gotten the feeling from the city council that they're ready to completely go away from that in the areas that are zoned A1. And so it goes against the general plan.
Ms. Wilson, part of what I've also had the opportunity is to talk to people on the council is that there is opportunities when there is unique pieces of property where it is situated different from the regular A1. This is one of those cases in which we're looking at a piece of property that has a canal that transects both of our properties, that is now buried, that is now leaves, it's not as if you can build across it, it now makes it into two pieces of property. So it is uniquely situated to have that variance, unlike a typical A1 property. And that's why in looking at this case, we're looking at the very narrow exception, given the fact that it has the canal, versus making it, opening the door to the rule. And that's where this would be different. And in talking to members, that's the reason why we have these type of things. Is these type of rezones is for situations that change. We've had a situation that changed. We had a situation in which we spent considerable amount of money to get that taken care of, so that we can also open up the door to the opportunity to really improve that back piece of property for the kids, for the children. I've got two kids that just had children. I don't know how they're going to afford houses unless we start thinking creatively to say, oh yeah, we've got a beautiful piece of property in a beautiful part of the area that would be ideal to be able to build something nice that's adjacent to grandparents' home. All of a sudden, that's exactly the reason why we do exceptions or rezones and approve those things. And that's why I understand your general proposition that, yeah, that's true. It does open up the door. But in this case, the members can take solace in the fact that this is different with the fact of there has been a substantial change, a radical change with that. It just barely happened. Soon as that happened, that's when we came in to the city.
Well, it might have been a good idea to get your rezone before you put the expense into that, though.
Go ahead.
It's a benefit either way, right? I mean, it was kind of an eyesore. We had a hard time keeping the weeds out from both sides of it. Rich literally had zero access. They didn't even put a gate in to try to clear those weeds. So it was kind of an eyesore that, yes, it still benefits our property. That being said, the property's always been divided. I've lived there since 2007, a year after the home was built. The property has always been divided by that canal. There was 26 feet of it, their easement's 24. There was 26 feet of it wide down the entire length of the property that was fenced off and closed off from use. Now, of course, we can't build on that easement, but that could be a backyard of a home now and be a grass area and be usable land, right? Because the easement's always going to be there.
Whereas before it was 10-foot weeds. I mean,
And I just think this opens up for, I don't know how many properties just in my neighborhood
Yeah.
that could come in and say, hey, we got all this space. We got a kid that needs a house that's affordable. So
Natalie, I think that the difference is that you would be able to assure that person that, well, this is a little bit different in the fact that there was this canal. It does physically transect the property, and it's ideal with the fact that there's 1800 South along the north.
Right, I understand all that,
Okay.
but these bodies change,
I know.
so you can't throw that out, that the exception's okay because of this.
But on the other hand, we've got to be careful that we aren't so narrowly construed that we can't ever allow for changes and exceptions that are reasonable. And that's what we're hoping, is that we've done our due diligence in coming before this August board in saying this is a reasonable request. And that's what we would hope, that you would get it approved.
Sherry, do we have any staff recommendations on this?
Written down below.
You know, talking about the quality of the house aside, strictly from a developments and an ordinance standpoint, because this doesn't comply with the general plan, with the stated recommendations in the future land use map, staff's recommendation is actually the commission recommend that the council deny the rezone. Because, I mean, fundamentally, it's not consistent with the general plan. There is a process to go through for variances that's not handled by staff, the commission, or the council. The state sets out very, very strict requirements for granting a variance. This would not meet the state requirements for granting a variance. And so that, combined with the incompatibility with the general plan, is the basis of staff's recommendation that it be denied.
I'm concerned with the precedents it might set. However, I kind of agree to the point that if it did ever work, that frontage on 1800 does make this a unique property. So I feel a little conflicted because I can see where that would be more beneficial, where a lot of lots, it would be a flag lot. It would not be attractive to the subdivision, and also where this has, you know, this kind of makes me feel a little more conflicted because you have the water retention pond. There's no neighbor to the east, so nobody's really going to be impacted there. So that's where I'm kind of a little conflicted, but I
Or to the west. I mean, in either side, because you've got agreement across the board that to be able to utilize that 1800 South.
yeah, but I think the general plan is kind of what's given us heartburn.
I don't think you need to worry about precedent, because the only way you establish precedent, as the attorneys have told us, is if you have two identical pieces of
Right.
property. So someone may say, well, you did it for them, you have to do it for me. No, you don't, because it has to be identical. So,
That's good.
and no two properties are identical, as our old city attorney said, before Amy came along, so.
And if we were to build an ADU unit, it would literally be the exact same as breaking it off. The only difference, like Rich said, is being able to sell the property one day, and that's really the only thing that's held me back on even building an ADU so far. You know, it's that expense, you know, if we went to sell the property, if it's $1.5 million, there's 1% of the buyers that could afford that, right? And so, yes, you'd have the expense, and yes, it could be another rental, you know, for affordable housing for the community, but also we could also create affordable housing for our own kids versus just, you know, a 1,200 square foot ADU unit.
Well, that's what concerns me about an ADU, is if you did sell it and it was an ADU, it's more likely to become a rental. So they can build on it, right? No question. They can put an ADU there, or they can put a house.
Well,
Then
that's
it-
what
then
most
it
people
becomes
use
a-
it Use for anyway, is rentals.
Yeah, but I mean, do we want rentals there, or would we rather just have
A nice
a home that's on its
single
own lot?
home.
If I may ask, when did you purchase this property?
It was in 2007? 2006?
Yeah, we've been there.
She knows.
Yeah, the wife knows.
Were you the first owner of the house? Yeah.
Yeah. And
'Cause that's
and
about
like
when
I
the
said,
subdivision happened.
we pride ourselves on being very thoughtful neighbors and communicating and talking, and would never do anything to further polarize or create problems. And that's really why we went out personally and spoke to everybody on this.
Well, you talk about the impact on neighbors. I mean, these two lots would be on 1800. They're next to a detention or a
Water.
secondary water pond. and then a street and 1,800. So they're, the only neighbors they're gonna impact is these two.
Or the ones across the street of,
And that's the Packers, that's who I mentioned.
and
I-
that's,
And I talked to them
that's
and
a
they're,
total of 4 people, and 2 of them said
Well,
they
2 of-
didn't want it.
Well, one of those lives
Yeah.
here.
in
and
the
other one
circle.
lives here.
Yeah.
Exactly, that,
The-
but there is a total of 4, and 2 of them complained about it. Or
Well,
had their concerns.
In, next to us, as far as in the circle, but on 1800 South, nobody. That's what I'm saying, is that across the street, when we talked to the Holmeses and talked to everybody in the adjacent, everybody was on board. And so that's the good news, is that you've got, these smaller homes. The Packers is a nice size home. This is only going to improve their quality and increase their property values.
Kurt Nalder did call me and say, there's no way he can build on that. It's not big enough. And so he went out and measured and began.
Yeah.
One thing that I need to point out with regard to neighbor support or neighbor opposition, the planning commission is not to consider neighbor support or neighbor opposition in making recommendations, because the planning commission's not to be responsive to public clamor. You're just supposed to make the recommendation to the city council on the merits of the decision.
And not to put too fine a point, we did walk the property with developers to make sure that this was not something, that this isn't a fool's errand, that we're actually, and you know, Kurt's no fool. He said, yeah, this is totally doable on this piece of property. And when you get back there, it is a big piece of property. And that's why to be able to just do something nice is all I'm asking. It's all Matt's asking. You know, it is such a huge problem with the value of properties. It's one thing if we're talking about a value of a property and we're gonna decrease it by putting something cruddy out there. It's another thing when we're gonna stay, we wanna be there, and we wanna put something nice that would allow kids, like I said, I've got 2 kids that are just barely had babies. I cannot imagine how hard it is. The first house I ever bought was, Natalie could tell you, it was $180,000, I think.
Mine was 67.
130, okay? And it was on a much smaller piece of property. 4 acres. Yeah, 0.1. And we loved it. What we're saying here is if we can look and see that this is something for them, it takes one major huge component out of and that's land property. And then it further, like I said, it increases the value of those around with a very nice piece of, developed house. So.
Well, we've all shared our thoughts down to here. Do you guys have any thoughts you want to share?
I mean, I'm just listening and trying to kind of take it all in, and I go back to the general plan is kind of what guides me, and I know kind of the direction we have from the city, the community, and I agree. Like, I've got kids in the same boat. I've got kids that are in houses right below you, actually, and trying to find housing. But looking at this, like, from a community perspective, I look at it and I think the community has supported this as an A1 zone. And so I don't feel like I can go against that personally. And I understand all your arguments and I agree with them. And I mean, they are valid points. And I think that maybe if the general plan opens up again, it would be something that maybe I would make sure I was there to talk and propose this at that point in time. But my heartburn is going away from that, because we've gotten a directive from our community to do that, and that's maybe not the place to split a property. That's the concern. That's my concern on that. So an A1 is not an area that I want to split a property and go for affordable housing in that area.
And I don't think it's necessarily, when I say affordable housing, the only reason it would be affordable is me and Matt developing the piece of property with something substantial on it.
And I'm sure that,
the other,
like I said, I understand what you're saying. Yeah. I agree with it, but now you can kind of see my feelings on that. So I'm a little conflicted like you are. Becky, and it's like, if there's a place that I would maybe consider that would be the place, but at the same time, as a city, that's kind of what we've set up as an A1 area, and
But
I don't know that I want to start piecemealing anywhere across the city, places that, well, this would be a good place to put in affordable housing, or this would be a good place to split a lot. I don't feel like that's something that we should be doing.
But if we build an ADU unit back there,
Right.
what really is the difference at the end of the day?
The
It would
difference
be
is the
exact-
ADU is allowed. That's the difference.
And the other
it's
thing-
allowed under our ordinances.
But aesthetically and splitting it, it's essentially the same, it's just not on paper that you could sell it as two separate lots. At
Right.
the end of the day, it would still be the exact same thing.
One owner.
It would be
Not
one
two.
owner, but it'd be one owner either way, because it's still the same owner right now.
It's actually,
I think
And-
eventually West Haven will probably come to that, and they may come and say in the general plan, if there are lots that can be easily divided, go for it. But at this point, that's not what the general plan
When we
states.
originally came in, we weren't even sure because of the changes throughout Seacrest on the different changes. And so there was remaining confusion on whether it was allowed, whether it was. That top end property, it was later found out from Sherry that it was an A1. We thought it was something different. It's been completely confusing, and there's been changes that have been made to the plan throughout the years since Seacrest is been put in. All we're asking for is what is reasonable based upon the unique characteristics of that land. And so, I mean, it's changed back and forth. What we're saying is that it would not be binding upon this group, and it would be appropriate, given the fact that there's been 2 changes in Seacrest already, to be able to allow on those 2 pieces of property to be able to do a rezone. So, I mean, when we first talked, Sherry, what did we think it was?
I don't recall.
Okay.
I know when you first filled out the application, you had the wrong zone on it,
Yeah.
but I don't recall what our conversation was at first.
And that was based upon what we believed at the time of what it was. But it's gone through several iterations as we've gone through that. And that's what I'm saying, is that this is not something that's set in stone, especially where it is something that can be, on an individual basis, changed. And this is unique, just like Darren says, this is a unique situation for that.
I do need to correct one thing. This portion of Seacrest Acres, part of Seacrest Acres was involved in the open space rezone that we did last summer. This portion of Seacrest Acres, it was on the ordinance, but it was just confirming the zoning that was already in place. This property has not changed from A1 since it was developed.
Well, it wasn't the open space. We changed it from the open space.
Part of
Non-
Seacrest Acres was open space and part of it was A1.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We brought the whole subdivision in together just so it could, but this portion of the subdivision was just confirming the zoning that was already there.
Andrew, you want to chime in at all online?
I am kind of on the fence as well. I mean, I do understand the intentions, but from our side where we sit and what the direction is of the community and all the time spent on the general plan to get it there, I'm leaning towards leaving it as A1. We are going through the process of, we'll be starting the process soon of reviewing the general plan and possibly making changes. And the property just to the north, all that land is currently in the general plan as A2, I believe. And if that gets changed or if that gets revised during the general plan, I might be more open to seeing it switch to R2 if it meshed with that area better. But I don't know, my general inclinations are to stick with the general plan as is.
One thing to remind the commission too is the commission is just a recommending body.
Right.
You're not the decision makers in this case. If the majority of the commission feels it appropriate to recommend a denial, and I'm not saying that it doesn't have to be done now, but when you're at that point where someone is ready to make a motion, the motion is actually to recommend denial. It's not a motion to approve that then fails. It's a motion. It's a motion to recommend denial.
And city council makes the decision.
And then city council does make the decision.
And I
So your journey doesn't end here.
and I understand that. I guess my overall, and I know you guys are deliberative and trying to do pursuant to the four corners of what the city plan, but we also know that one of the key requirements and one of the very things for which West Haven has been seeking for, whether it was on prior council or Ms. Hughey, has been to find places for affordable housing. And so when there becomes a situation that's unique like we have here, and it goes right along with the state's plan, which the state, I mean, you even hear it from leaders throughout the state that this is the very thing that we have to start planning for. And it comes before, and it's like, well, our hands are tied because of the plan. But the plan going from the city has always been, we've got to start figuring out appropriate ways. And so everything that we've hopefully presented to you has been to show that this is not only appropriate, but this would be enhancing to the city. And that's what I think my frustration is that I know in hearing, in listening to everybody's comments, is like, well, it's, you know, if we do it here, we'd have to do it. We wouldn't. This would be unique as to this, but it would also be very in line with not only what the city wants in trying to figure out this complex problem of housing, but exactly with what the state is wanting. The state is coming down over and over as an attorney on cities. And that's the last thing you want to see, is another situation where the state is saying, or the federal government, I mean, in all of this, to basically state, you're not doing things to encourage or provide affordable housing. Now I know the rejoinder to that is going to be, well, look around. We've got complexes going up all over the place. What we're asking here is just in this very unique situation so that we can keep it the continuity between not only the housing, the land that's already paid for so that we can build on it, but also improve what's around. And that's what I'm saying, is it kills two birds with one stone, in the sense that it allows encouragement of housing here within, staying close to the other very nice property, whether it's Matt or myself, they're very nice homes, and it allows children that otherwise couldn't afford that type of house to be able to live close to home.
I'm warming up to the idea, I think it might be a hard sell to the city council, but I feel like as time goes on, I think this is, we were built kind of the city on acre lots, and that just isn't practical with the water issue. So I see that this is gonna be kind of a theme that will probably reemerge, and maybe the city will kind of adapt to some of, and maybe make some considerations. And I think it would improve, especially the east lot. It looks like it's just unless this is an updated picture.
Nope.
I think it would improve. I think it would improve the look from 1800, yeah. I think if I lived across the street, I'd rather see a house than when the wind blows and there's sand and things. So I can definitely see where you're coming from. It just might be a hard sell now, but I think there
There
could be
is
some.
R2 in this subdivision too. My house is one of them. Just further south. The Seacrest is a mix. Because it was open space zoning, it was 1 acre overall zoning, and then so there's smaller lots and bigger lots, so.
And when Dave Wilson, in speaking to land use experts like Dave Wilson, that was his frustration with these lots are so large and it uses so much water that they're impracticable. And so, yeah, we could put grass over there, but that further exacerbates the water problem with Wilson irrigation. All of a sudden, you're just watering it just to do that. Then you're taking away the ability for kids to be able to be close to home and have a piece of property. I mean, if we're talking about the very essence of land use within the state of Utah, which is at the very preamble of land use, it's the highest, best use of land. And that's all we're saying, is that we want to be able to utilize it for its highest and best use, which is a single family dwelling. And that would reduce the imprint on use of water on that other property, as far as on that other side, dramatically. In addition to, like what's been said earlier, neighbors who have said, you know, they don't want to look at weeds. They don't want to look at a blank lot. Yeah, it just makes practical sense.
Okay, I'm ready for a motion.
I'll make a motion. I find that the request is inconsistent with the general plan and accordingly motion that we forward this application to the city council with a recommendation that they deny the application to rezone parcel 15393008 located at 2828 West, 1850 South, and parcel 15393007 located at 2844 West, 1850 South from A1 to R2.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of recommending denial, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. Nay.
Nay.
You're close. It's 3-4. So the denial, recommended for denial goes to the city council, so you'll be in front of the city council, how soon?
It should be next week.
Next week, so.
Okay.
But if, my suggestion would be if this doesn't go the way you want it to, then get involved with
General
recommending some changes to the general plan when it's coming up. Because I hear what you're saying. I also have an acre that we water in grass that we don't need anymore. We don't have children playing on it anymore. So I hear what you're saying.
I know.
But at this point, the general plan needs to be adjusted so that that is something, because I agree, most people don't need an acre lot and most people don't take care of them. So I'm not against what you're proposing, except for that it goes against what's in the general plan. So that would be my suggestion, work to make suggestions to change the general plan.
And if we can make sure that that's placed in the record as far as that, I know it's a 3-4, but also that there are these real considerations. I mean, this is.
Yeah, they can watch us, our
Yeah.
meeting, and they'll get the minutes of it too.
So-
There's one city council member online too, I can see, so.
My other thought on this is the property across the street from that is A2 still, so when the rezoning happens, we are always looking at buffering also, so that we're not going from A2,
The
R2.
houses that are built over there
So-
aren't that big.
Right, so, I mean, when we're looking at that rezoning, that's a possibility, talking about rezoning that area across the street. If that area goes to R2, then that's a simple fix to move you guys to R2 also. So, just some things to think about, kind of puts us in a bad position. I feel like we're all kind of a little bit on the fence, but still trying to do what our job is to do for the city. And so, I mean, good luck.
With the city council.
Yeah. And we're redoing the general plan this year, so.
When will that be open for comment?
It should be in the newsletter when you're.
So we actually next week at West Haven Days are going to start the initial public outreach. We've hired a public outreach consultant. I just had a meeting with them today. We have a logo. It's actually kind of cool. You guys will be proud of me when they sent me the logo originally. There was cars and houses on one side and transit and high rises on the other side.
Oh, dear.
And I said, that's not going to work.
Gary, you've got my information. Just keep us posted on that.
Yeah, so they're going to be at West Haven Days to do the initial public outreach. And then there'll be a website and some surveys that'll be live within the next week or two. Some of it we're going to try and get live before West Haven Days, but we may not be able to. But there's going to be a website. There's going to be some surveys. There'll be some things here at City Hall The actual writing and drafting of the general plan will probably happen late summer or early fall. So, but the bulk of the summer will be spent gathering public input through a variety of ways.
Yeah, so city's website plus the
Just
newsletter that
keep
goes
your eye
out.
on the city's social media
Will I
stuff.
receive notice regarding the city council meeting as far as when to attend on that?
Attend next Wednesday at 6 o'clock.
Okay,
This is your notice.
that's what I'm asking.
The agenda is usually released tomorrow.
Yeah, it'll be on the website, so you'll see where you are on the.
Thank you, gentlemen and ladies.
Thank you. All right, item number 11, discussion of possible increase to the minimum lot size in the R2 zone. So out of curiosity, that legislator that wanted a minimum lot size in the state and a max, what were the numbers?
I don't remember what the exact numbers were.
I just thought it'd be interesting to see what they're thinking.
I don't even know who it was specifically that pushed it, whether it was just a discussion point in the Housing and Land Use Task Force, whether it was just something that was worked on during interim sessions. I know there have been some pretty gnarly proposals.
Yeah, I heard a few. I was a little worried.
There was a bill that somebody proposed that very quickly got shot down that would have allowed developers to create special service districts and implement special service fees, and someone was nice enough to bring up the whole constitutional concept of no taxation without representation, because they were going to try and levy things on people's property taxes. So there are some pretty gnarly proposals that have gone through the state. Luckily, we have the Utah League of Cities and Towns that does a good job of that for us.
I was confused on the form you sent. Some of them didn't even have R2s, so how do we know what
Right.
correlates to R2?
Okay, so yeah. Do you guys all have the thing in front of you that I sent?
I like Enix RR1.
Yeah.
It's like Railroad 1.
So
Or real rural. Can't even say that.
yeah.
40,000 square foot lots.
So I wanted, like I said in my email, there's no methodology to the cities that I picked. It's mostly cities that I know have experienced growth, have experienced a similar transition from rural to more suburban.
I was
Similar
surprised
to-
Hebrew was so small.
What? Oh, okay. Here's the thing with
Shocked me.
Heber, though. If you get beyond that, I know it's a little bit surprising with Heber. Heber City actually has a master plan zone for their developments that are up in the hills. And they have 3 different types of zones in that. They have patio homes, which has a 5,000 square foot for their master plan community. They have traditional, which is 8,000. And then they have what they call, a lot of cities refer to these as estate lots. But even their estate lots are half acre. But that's more of a master planned thing. This is just, and I didn't pull every zone from every city. These are just largely the ones that are just single family. Some of them allow twin homes.
What are they wanting it increased to?
Well, that's the thing. I asked for some more context from the city council. The genesis behind this is a concern by Councilmember Call that there's too big of a gap between the 12.5 and the 20. And I don't disagree that it's a significant jump, but it also has to be put into context, because one of the benefits of how our zones are written, and I will go on record, we have too many residential zones. It needs to be simplified, but it is what it is. We deal with it the best we can. And we actually have a residential zone that can allow single family lots as small as 5,000 square feet with no density cap on it. We don't have it anticipated for anywhere in the future land use map, but it does exist in the city. But one of the things with our zones, and you can see that of all the cities I pulled, we're one of 3 cities that do this. Besides having a minimum lot size, we cap the density. So yes, there is a large jump from 12.5 to 20 between R2 and R1. But there's also in R2, there's a density cap at 2 units an acre. 12.5 is closer to 3.6 units an acre. So if somebody has 50 acres of R2, they're not going to get 180 lots out of it.
No.
They're going to get 100.
Well, when you look at comparing R2 to R1, 12.5 isn't half of 20.
Right.
So I guess that's why I'm.
That
questioning.
density cap really
The
makes
density
the
cap
difference.
makes a huge difference
Yeah.
because, and that's why I went through all of our R2 subdivisions and looked at all of the lot sizes of every lot that's R2 in the city, what's built on and what's approved. Those are the lot size ranges. The average of R2 is not close to 12.5. It's over 1/3 of an acre. The average is 16,564. Because for every 12.5 lot that you have in a subdivision, I mean, and this can be spread out over several lots, but for one 12.5 lot, you have to have one that's 31,060 square feet. You know, or
Cap of 2.
to limit it to the cap of 2. So we cap the density in addition to having the minimum lot size, which is good. So, I mean, and Westwood, the reason there's 2 sets of numbers on there, Westwood was a very large MDA that has some very small lots on it because of how the MDA was written and done, and that predated me, so I don't know all the conversations that went into that. But Westwood has over half its lots are under 12.5, and some of them are like 6,000 and 7,000 square feet. But even taking out, and if you take out Westwood, you've got the average of 17,000, just over 17,000 square feet in lots. So
There's only 51 lots that are 12.5 or less without Westwood.
yeah.
Wow.
So on the one hand, I understand the concern about the gap between 12.5 and 20,000. On the other hand, from a planning perspective, I don't believe there's a material benefit to the city in increasing the minimum lot size, because the only thing that will do is you will get subdivisions that are the exact same size lots all the way down the row.
Yeah, they're cookie cutters, and we
You'll-
still have people who want smaller lots, but
Yep.
they want to be in a more rural feel.
Yep. You'll get much more cookie cutter subdivisions. You'll lose some of the innovation in subdivision design. And as you can see,
You have some subdivisions, our land is weird because of all the canals
right,
and stuff. So you kind of need
Yeah.
some flexibility there.
the one thing that I would suggest that is a reasonable way to accomplish a similar purpose, but still leave room for the innovation in design by allowing some of the smaller lots. Right now, the example I used earlier was 50 acres. Right now, if it's zoned for 2 units an acre, they can have 100 lots. What I would actually recommend, and this is actually a pretty common practice with a lot of cities, is that before you calculate the allowed density, developers be required, and this is something I should have talked to you guys about in the subdivision ordinance, I would actually recommend that density be calculated on net acreage of the property instead of gross acres. So they have to take out
Roads and everything.
all the acreage for roads, all the acreage for like stormwater and stuff like that. And so everything that's not going to be used as a building lot, that's the acreage that you take out, and whatever's left over. And typically that's anywhere from 15 to 25% of the property, depending on how you lay it out. Because if you do that, then on 50 acres, instead of 100 lots, if they take 10 acres out, you get 80 lots at the maximum.
That essentially cuts the density down just by doing that.
It does. It does cut the density down. So if you require that, then, you know, if something is zoned for half-acre lots, it's not 2 units an acre. It actually becomes more like 1.7. So, and like I said, some of that depends on how it lays out. So from a planning perspective, I don't think there's a material benefit to the city to increase it. But understanding the concern about density, I would recommend the city instead require that density be based on the net acreage once roads and other public improvements, or private if they choose to do private roads, once other right-of-way improvements are calculated, take that out of the acreage and there's your density instead.
Yeah, will that make more private roads, tiny little private roads, so that they can get more density? That's what I'd worry about.
Say that again.
So they build a bunch of private little dinky roads so that they can get the density higher?
No, it would be the roads, period. I misspoke when I said public infrastructure or public
but I
improvement.
know,
We're
but-
saying making smaller roads so that they would have less.
So the developer says, okay, I'm just gonna make tiny little roads so that
Well,
I can get the most out of it.
I mean, we do have standards for private roads. We do have a minimum pavement amount. We do have, and so they still will have to have the sufficient carrying capacity. And on the one hand, as long as they meet the city standards, maybe it's not the worst idea. If there are more private roads, then it's less burden on the city to maintain.
Well, contrary to what my comments may lead people to believe, I am in favor of having more subdivisions where we have more homes. I don't want them stacked on top of each other, but it is a real problem that people can't afford homes. And the bigger lots you have,
It is.
the more money the house is gonna be. I mean,
It
it's
is.
out of control in Utah right now.
It is. I mean, just my own personal perspective. My salary's public, but it's not like I make $1 million, but I'm one person. I cannot afford anything anywhere in Davis County that's less than 45 years old or is a mobile home.
Yeah.
So I'll go a different way with this. If we're already averaging 16,000 square feet, then why not just go ahead and put that and codify it?
Because what I said before, that will make cookie cutter subdivisions. Every lot will be exactly the same. There will be no innovation in design. There will be no creativity.
And this way, in a subdivision, somebody like me who doesn't want all this land anymore can have maybe 8,000 square feet. Someone else who still wants all of that land can buy a lot in that subdivision that has 22,000. You see? So it still equals.
That's what I loved about my subdivision when I bought it, is because it has varying size lots. So that I've got neighbors that have 1.5 acres and have
It
horses.
meets different people's needs.
But we already have that because we have different zones and it exists.
But as you just,
Well, I mean, we have all these different zones. Why can't we change one of the zones?
But what I'm saying is in an R2,
Right.
I like that elbow room feel, but I don't want that much land anymore. But I like that feel in a subdivision.
Right.
So
So
why
really
can't you
could-
have the variety for different people?
Yeah, it just gives flexibility. It's still, you only have 2 homes per acre.
well, and the reason that I pulled the information from other cities is you can see in most of them, there is a similar huge jump between minimum lot sizes. You know, cities, you'll get cities that go 10 to 12, but then it jumps to 20.
Yeah, Saratoga
So
Springs, 9, 10,
it's-
20, 40.
You know, Enoch goes from 11 to 18 to 40.
Yeah.
It's that Clinton is a little bit of an exception, and same with Payson, but there is typically a jump. Once you get past 12.5, it usually jumps to half acre and then it jumps to an acre. it's not, you don't see a different, because most cities want to minimize their zone, the number of residential zones they have. Logan City for single family has 3 for a city of that size for single family residential. And I didn't put them on there because they're large and haven't had the same growing pains. But Logan City is another city that says, okay, this is your minimum lot size, but this is your density cap.
So they have one minimum lot size for the whole city?
No, they have 3.
Oh, for each zone.
Yeah, but in each one of those zones, they also have a density cap. And so that's why, like, from a land use planning perspective, the wisest thing for cities to do is what we have, because it encourages the flexibility and innovation in design, and but it also doesn't, we've got the patio home zone for more cookie cutter lots. We've got that. But in some of these smaller zones, it allows for, and this is why the last people came in asking for it. It allows for smaller lots next to bigger lots. And it allows for more of a community feel instead of subdivisions all looking the same.
And having the same demographic of people,
Right.
because they're the ones that can afford it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In order for cities to truly create community, and I'm not saying do away with single family zoning.
Alec,
There
you
are
can come
some
up and
people
comment if you want.
There are some people at the state that have tried pushing the legislature to do away with single family zoning. That has happened in other states. And I'm not suggesting that we need to put apartments next to acre lots. But in order for cities to truly create a sense of community, you cannot have all the 1 acre lots over here, all the half acre lots over here, because all that is doing is creating exclusionary zoning, and you will end up with a fractured city. It has been proven time after time in planning studies, the country and the world over.
And I think it will become even more so in West Haven.
Yes.
With the high cost of homes right now. Because
Yes.
you really do really weed out any young families unless mommy and daddy are footing the bill for a new house.
Yes.
What about lowering the density in those areas? Like you were saying, 1.7 versus 2.
But
I'm trying to understand, but
why do you, I guess
because I would like it to keep it more of a country feel than.
But country feel truly has nothing to do with lot size. Country feel is an attitude that people have. Your lot size doesn't mean you live in the country. It's your attitude.
I don't know. I live in a patio home and I don't feel like I'm in the country. I gotta ride my bicycle north to feel like I'm
if
in
you
the
look
country.
at a lot of our acre lots, they look like they're in the country because they're weeds and they're junkyards. That's not the kind of country I want to live in, but really, drive around.
I get that. No, I ride my bike around. I get a little more exercise that way. But can't we create ordinances so that people can't leave all the weeds and the junk?
Yes, if you can
But
actually get
that's
them
not country.
forced.
I know, there's
That's
that,
not country. Less
We
ordinances is more country.
we do,
Ours, can we
we
have a
do
limit
have
on it?
nuisance ordinances, but nuisance ordinances for every city are actually exceptionally hard to enforce.
Yes, they are. And
So,
we only have.
and cities
Dan.
cities do the best they can. But so I don't know, does the majority of the commission, I wanted to have a conversation about it without having a proposal so that I can go back and return and report the commission's feelings to the council. Is it something that the commission wants to pursue? Are you fine with it the way it is? Do you want to wait until the general plan is done to look at it?
That might be a good time to actually take a look.
Well, but I think you need to know what it is if you're gonna stick it on the general plan. You need
Yeah.
to know what that zone is.
You've heard
If you're
my
gonna
opinion, I'm
change
okay
it,
with it
you-
the way it is.
Well, right. And that's what I mean, like, it's conversations about land use and density and things like that come into play. Like there are the ordinances that we're changing right now are because we have to change.
Oh, I know, I get that for sure.
I think that
I get the impression though from most people I've talked to, and they're okay with the R2 zone. I haven't had anybody complain about the R2 zone.
I
Once
haven't
they
gotten
understand
any-
It's not duplexes, mind you.
I haven't gotten any complaints about it either.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just that the only things I hear is that West Haven, is becoming less and less country. And it's because apartments and all the
Well,
other
it's because
stuff.
the people who own the fields are selling
Are
them.
moving.
That's where your
I don't
country
know
feel
about
is
that.
leaving.
We've only got two that.
Well, you
have
have
moved
to have
out.
apartment buildings, that's
You
federal
can't
law.
control that.
Yeah.
So you
Well,
have
it's
to
a
have
matter
it.
of where we put them. And
Well,
we're
and-
doing well with that.
We put them in good spots.
We did that.
I mean, and the reality is
Huh, Al?
there's not much the city can do. We can't tell people they can't sell their farmland.
No, and
And
that's
so,
what I tell people.
Like and we have to, the city, the fundamental underpinning of land use law in the state of Utah is that people have the absolute right to do whatever the heck they want with their property. And any regulation that the city makes has to be viewed in light of how it impedes that right. So that you can't stop the development, you can't stop the growth, and it's getting harder and harder for cities to manage it. So do we want to go down the road of being even more restrictive, or do we want to give the developers something that they can work with that may not be what anybody wants ideally, but it gives them room to be more flexible in how they lay things out?
The other thing you need to look at is we become more inflexible, more difficult.
Yes.
And the legislature takes note of us.
Yes.
And passes some ridiculous law that makes it even worse,
Yeah.
which they will do.
Yeah.
I think
So we
one
don't
of
want
my,
to become the poster child for ridiculousness or
Yes.
making things difficult.
Right.
I do
My
have a
recommendation
concern.
would be not to change it.
My concern too, Sherry, is that when we open that general plan, it would be nice to like know what Weber County is doing around us, because just knowing what the development that's going on down 12th Street and all around us, if we want people to annex in, and we've had this discussion before, I mean, we can't make them annex in as A1 possibly. Like we might need to be a little more flexible, especially in our high, A2.
A2.
In our high, those areas that we know we're gonna have legacy come through.
Right.
Like I don't know, and it's been long enough now, and kind of as the cost of housing has risen, that we might be able to
Right.
look at that. And I don't know if we can get some information from Weber County to know what their direction is with everything that
Yeah,
borders us.
I have a lot of it.
Because
I
they're
will-
building townhomes on 3,500.
Yeah.
That was never in our plan.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. Like right now, as much as the county doesn't like it, there's no incentive for people to annex into cities because the county will let them develop at a higher density than what the city will.
Yeah.
Well,
And
when
so-
that was changed, we had that conversation, and
Right.
city council said it was only temporary, that we were gonna relook at it, and
Yeah.
when are we gonna relook at it?
Well, we're starting the public outreach next week.
June 22nd.
I don't think it's a good time to change it because I think we have to be really careful because the state is moving closer and closer to removing local control. And if we don't want the state to do that, we cannot dig our heels in the sand. And by no means do I think we need apartments everywhere. That's not what I mean. Contrary to what was said previously, the city is actually in really, really good standing when it comes to moderate income housing. We are not in jeopardy. The city attorney has not said it's a problem. She texted me during the meeting. She's on vacation, but she texted me like, what did he just say about me? The city attorney is not worried about it. We have certification from the state of Utah that we're compliant with moderate income housing. The city is in really good standing when it comes to that. But now is not the time because of what's going on at the state and this renewed plan that the state has just put out for how people want to see growth guided throughout the state. We need to be models of like cooperation and flexibility without, like,
You're saying it's not a good time to change it from A2?
no, it's not a good time to increase the minimum lot size in R2.
Yeah,
Oh, you're saying
I was
something
waiting to
different.
ask that too. Like, wait a
Sorry,
minute,
sorry.
I knew where you were at.
Ah, okay. Mary got it.
This,
Black and white person, so you gotta spell it out for me.
Yeah.
sorry,
She bounced a little, but I knew
I
where she
bounced
was
a
at.
little.
It
Sorry.
sounds as though the state of Utah wants to turn into Southern California, and I pity the state.
I don't think
Well,
there
a
are
lot
some
of realtor-
decisions. There are some decisions that I can understand would cause that.
And builders.
But I guess I need to know if the commission wants me to put together a proposal to increase it.
I don't
Yay,
think so,
nay?
because with the cap is what rules. You know, that minimum lot size just gives
Okay.
flexibility.
Is that kind of the,
I'm good with it as is.
okay.
Well, we know where I am, so.
Confused?
That too. That too.
Okay.
All right. Well, we've ran away all the citizens, so.
So I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.